From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Alexis, codename Doc Holliday Jackson. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. If you're hearing this the evening it comes out, then we wish you a happy June 20th, 2024. We have so much to get to from our favorite part of the show, you, specifically you. We're gonna hear about some strange science. We're gonna get a couple of insider perspectives on organizations that prefer not to be cults, as well as allegations of price fixing. We might even get to some good pew humor, some pew poop humor at the end. But for now, just want to check in with you guys. How's your week been?
Not bad. A little hectic on the family front, but can't complain. Finally feel a little bit caught up after my international trip. I was lagging there and had a little bit of travel crud, so I'm feeling okay.
Yeah. I had a pet pass recently, so it's been a little rocky when it comes to that kind of stuff. I think everybody out there has either experienced that or can relate in some way, but hug your animals this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
send us photographs.
Ben, well, how was your week, man?
A lot of plot twists. We'll see how it works out.
All right, we're back in for this evening's first listener mail. We have a response from a listener, an insider perspective on the Cortland raid, the company that we discussed in a previous listener mail, a giant property management, or I guess, I don't know, Matt, it was your story. How would you classify this company? No, they're not management. They actually own all of these properties and lease them out, to renters, right?
Yes, they are, and I'm going to use the term landlords.
Indeed.
Yeah, and they own a crap ton of properties in Atlanta as well as many other cities across the United States. But it wasn't really about Cortland, right? It was about the software.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And that is exactly what this email is responding to from an insider perspective. This comes from Nico, by the way. Gents, I love your show, and I've been a long-time fan. I was listening to the recent episode where you touched on rent pricing software, and I would love to give you guys a better perspective on what is actually going on behind the curtain and how that software works. 1, this rental pricing software is ubiquitous throughout the industry and has existed for at least the last 15 years. 2, this software is imperfect, and it does actually recommend reducing rents or offering a leasing incentive based on the current occupancy of the property and recent trends, mostly at your own property versus the broader market. It even goes completely haywire at times and will tank your market rents by 20% if you don't set proper ceilings and floors. 3, this type of increase in rents would happen even in a world without this software. The reality is that it just occurs faster, similar to the hotel industry. Prices change daily. Me interjecting here, probably similar to the way it happens with plane tickets. 4, I would be absolutely shocked if anything came from this raid. This type of software exists across almost every industry. And I think at the time when we were talking about it, I did mention that it reminded me of the type of shipping and receiving logistical systems that are in place, for freight brokerage, right? Back to Nico. 5, Cortland isn't even close to the company that anyone should be worried about compared to groups like Greystar, who manage hundreds of thousands of apartments across the country, and they even have their own proprietary software compared to RealPage, so that nobody can actually get their head under the hood. If this isn't legal, how in the hell is it legal for automated high-frequency trading to occur, where a computer can buy a stock faster than I can and then sell it to me at a fractional increase? It is completely valid that we do not all invest in public markets, but we all do need shelter and as a fundamental need in Maslow's hierarchy. The reality is that Atlanta has been an absolute boom town, both commercially and for new residents over the last 15 plus years. and there has never truly been a time where vacancy has exceeded more than 7 or 8%. You might be surprised to learn that despite the fact that Georgia has a lower median home price than other large coastal cities or growing cities like Denver or Austin, you would need to make more than 60% than you do in 2020 in order to afford the same median price home. This increase is one of the highest in the nation, more than other states like Colorado, 50%, New York, 33%, Florida, 57%, and California, 48%. And then they link out to an article on CoStar.com. Nearly half of U.S. states require six-figure salary for a typical home. Some good information and some infographics there. Anyways, I absolutely love what you guys are producing. This is the one time that I actually had some insight on any podcast, really. Be well and Godspeed. Regards, Nico. And these kinds of these kinds of points did come up with the whole shipping situation as well. The freight brokerage and stuff. Is it about fine tuning a system for I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Most efficient routes and maximizing yield and all of that good stuff. I really like this listener's point of comparing it to automated stock brokerage, software and platforms and things like that. So I do think we were not heavy-handed in saying that this was entirely some sort of across the industry fraudulent activity, or the very nature of this software is inherently bad, but it does show that we rely quite heavily on these sorts of systems, and that there can be room in really complex arrangements. And especially I love the point that they made about the proprietary software for malfeasance to kind of take place, as they mentioned, under the hood or behind the curtain. So I don't know, Matt, I'd love to throw to you first, since this was, the story that you brought. Is there anything in this that spoke to you, or that kind of, pinged a bell for you?
Yeah, a lot of it did. Just knowing that there are multiple types of this software, or versions of this type of software, let's say, out there that are being used by a bunch of different people, a bunch of different groups, that some of it's proprietary in a way that RealPage is not. I didn't know this when we first were talking about it, but RealPage has been talked about for quite a while, for many years, as a kind of a weird thing that isn't working out so great for everybody. Well, it's working out great for the companies that own the land, right? But for the rest of us, it's like, I don't know, boys. Yeah. I'm just reading an article from ProPublica from 2022 in October. And the title is "Rent Going Up? One Company's Algorithm Could Be Why." And it has a lot to do. It just talks about RealPage. And some of this reporting and some of the worries back then are why there is this major antitrust thing going on right now, why Cortland was raided, why we're even talking about it. But maybe this isn't really the thing we need to be focused on. Maybe it's a much smaller player. RealPage is a much smaller player in an ecosystem of terrifying software.
Yeah. And Nico, thank you so much for taking the time for this beautifully written correspondence, and for being our boots on the ground, as it were. Would be really interested to hear your thoughts about someone we mentioned in that conversation, AJ Steigman, the chess prodigy who single-handedly changed the face of several real estate markets through his software, price optimization that is similar to this. And I think you make, I love a fact-dense report here, and I think you do such a wonderful job kicking the statistics, talking about the ways in which each city may be unique but similar enough to have comparisons. And I especially appreciate the high frequency trading aspect there too, or high speed trading, whatever they call it on Wall Street. There is this inevitability to it. And this one stayed with me for a while, even back when we were talking about the chess prodigy a few years ago. I would argue this kind of stuff, because of the technology and legislative relationship, it is inevitable. It answers a question that the landowning class once answered.
Well, and it also speaks to the notion that just because something's sketchy doesn't mean it's illegal. Just because something's in bad taste doesn't mean it's against the law. And just because it affects, regular people negatively does not mean that there are laws against it.
Like making and selling Honda Odysseys.
Exactly. That's exactly that.
My sister drives one, and it's actually kind of cool.
I wish her the best. They have a lot of cup holders.
They have so many cup holders.
Mm-hmm. They're known for their cup holders.
I think it's also a moral thing, like you're talking about, Noel. Because this ProPublica article has a quote from a Real Page executive named Andrew Bowen, and this I think speaks to what the software does and why it's scary. He says, as a property manager, very few of us would be willing to actually raise rents double digits within a single month by doing it manually.
Oh, let the computer take the blame.
Yes.
It's not me, guys. It's not us. We have this.
It's the
software.
Similar to the like what is Ticketmaster's real job? It's to be the bad guy. And I remember that ProPublica article. We may have even mentioned that. I'm not sure, but just taking a second here, just to quickly interject and say ProPublica is the business. ProPublica is so very good. And if you are looking for reporting and you feel like you're getting smoke and mirrors or hyperbolic, not well-researched stuff, go to ProPublica and see if they have some work on the topic you're attempting to learn more about. When they swing, they do not miss.
They had a documentary series for a while, I want to say in association with PBS or something like that. Like they've done a lot of investigative video series as well. So they have a really great YouTube channel you can follow. I couldn't agree more. It does seem like 9 times out of 10 when there's some serious breaking news, some like bombshell type stuff, ProPublica's name's in the conversation. But no, Matt, I really I just think it's very valid. The point you made and the quote you gave from the ProPublica piece, just about how this is a way of passing the buck to an entity, to an algorithm. And it's happening across the board in all kinds of industries. Like why, well, I'm sorry. This is just what the algorithm is saying. It's just like what the computer is telling me. There was a great sketch on Little Britain, which didn't age well, but there was one character who was
Computer says
no. And it's just like, sorry, I can't help you. The computer says no. Computer says triple your rates. Like I can't do anything for you.
Yeah, well, and Nico points out Graystar as another company we should all be thinking about and looking into, because it appears that they are a massive player in this game, and they are using what's referred to here as, and I didn't read this before, I didn't know it was called this, Yield Star, which I don't understand is potentially a type of software offered by RealPage or another, proprietary software that they offer. But it appears to have, again, there's just quotes here from executives at Graystar saying, oh yeah, even in one of our downturns, this software helped us outperform other markets by 4.8%.
Cool. Last little thing for me in terms of like parallels in other industries. You guys remember Connor Ratliff, who is a really great improv comedian. He was in Fabulous Mrs. Maisels or Marvelous Mrs. Maisels. And he has this excellent YouTube show called The George Lucas Talk Show, where he plays George Lucas and does all kinds of hilarious interviews. And he's really, really talented dude, Upright Citizens Brigade alum, and had a fabulous podcast series called Dead Eyes, talking about how he got fired by Tom Hanks from Band of Brothers before he even, actually showed up on set, because he supposedly had dead eyes. And the podcast is his attempt to kind of track down Tom Hanks and ask, what happened, why he fired him. But it's really, really good. But anyway, he has another thing that he does. It's an acting kind of like jokey acting masterclass thing. That's like basically a one-man improv show. And there's a piece of it that he published on his YouTube recently where he's talking about the Nielsen rating system. Back in the day, like no one knew how many people were actually watching TV, because it was all based on this sort of black box, Nielsen ratings, where like a family would get a box and a Nielsen diary or whatever. And then because of that, they would like use that sample size and say, okay, well then there must be X number of other families watching. And they would extrapolate these viewing numbers, right? Well, come along to the streaming era. You've got Netflix, who know exactly how many people are watching. They know when you're stopping it, when you're starting it, how long you're watching, etc. And they, in their infinite wisdom, have decided not to tell that to anybody, including creators, and to be completely opaque about that rather than transparent. So it's just interesting. The idea of computerized algorithms being another just black box in a way of hiding things from people, I think is very, very interesting across industries.
I know we all, every once in a while, listen to Comedy Bang Bang, but
Absolutely.
If you guys haven't heard this actor, Connor Ratliff, portray James Cameron, you need to go and listen to an episode where he plays James Cameron. It's amazing.
Agreed. Well, we'll take a quick break here for a word from our sponsor and then be right back. Well, thanks, by the way, Nico. I said Nico. It's Nikko. I think Nico works too. Either one. But thank you for this insider scoop on rent pricing software. We'll be back with more listener mail after this.
And we're back, boys, and we're getting on the road. We're going to hear a message from Gravy, a truck driver. Guess what his truck's name is?
The Gravy Train.
Biscuits.
Dang it.
Perfect. All right, so here we go. This is the message from Gravy.
Hey, Ben, Noel, Matt, and Max. I go by Gravy, the truck driver. That's Gravy, the truck driver. I'm pretty much in Texas in the 5-state area. I've been listening to y'all for quite a while now. I'm all caught up on all your back stuff and Josh and Chuck's and Ridiculous Crime, Ridiculous History, Saver, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, back in the 90s, here in Texas, they were going to build a super collider. And the government bought up thousands of acres and basically was using an eminent domain to make people sell. They give them a fair price, but then after a couple, 3 years of digging tunnels and stuff, all of a sudden they stopped and decided that they weren't going to do it. So did they turn that into a bunker, or are they doing nefarious things or whatever? A friend of mine's grandmother's still trying to buy back her back 20 acres that's got her fishing pond on it. They got 8-foot fence around it with barbed wire, that runs around their property. So she can't get over there and even go fish for perch and stuff anymore. Hasn't been able to for coming up on 30 years. Anyway, check it out and see what you think. Maybe it's conspiracy. Maybe it's not. Peace, brothers.
Thanks, Gravy. This is we love hearing from truckers, and I got very excited when this pinged a little bit of a memory palace. And Matt, I believe you spoke with Gravy, right?
Oh yeah, I talked with Gravy for way too long. Sorry about that, man. Took way too much of his time, but we talked about all kinds of different things, especially the Superconducting Super Collider. That was the one they were building in Texas. Doesn't that just sound Texas, y'all?
Sounds intense. They love the big stuff over there in Texas now.
It was going to be a big deal, guys. A really, really big deal. Was just looking at some reporting about it from the time, and it was so Ronald Reagan is the president in place that secured this project as a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then it went on to George H.W. Bush, George Bush Sr. And there's an incident that Gravy and I were talking about that I totally forgot, but I remembered as soon as I read it. Back in the day, you guys were probably paying attention to presidents a little bit. We weren't really watching the news all the time. I wasn't, certainly. But there's an incident when George H.W. Bush was in Japan, and he was eating at a dinner, and he vomited all over the place, including on, I think, high members of parliament.
What? I have not heard of this. Holy cow.
High members of Japanese governance, and
Bet that didn't sit well.
Accidental.
It was accidental, but
it was not a power move. It wasn't like Lyndon Johnson and his penis or something.
Oh, geez.
Wait, what? But yeah, that occurred, and one of the primary reasons the president was in Japan was to secure more funding for this superconducting super collider in Texas, because the cost overruns It was they got like $3 billion for it. Then it was going to cost like $10 billion. It was going over and over and over. And which is the primary reason why it shut down.
I mean, yeah, because it's like a monkey paw situation at that point. I want this to be a big deal. Finger curls down. It will be, just not the way you wish. Right?
Yeah. And P.S. also in Texas style, guys, it was going to be roughly 3 times the size of CERN's Super Collider.
That'll teach them.
The Large Hadron.
We were talking a little bit off air. This is what pinged the memory for me, Matt, was realizing our episode, Should We Be Concerned? We were looking at the rabbit holes of tangential research led us to other unsuccessful attempts to emulate or to improve upon the mission of, or the infrastructure of CERN. And turns out it's really kind of tricky. You know what I mean?
Tricky and expensive. It's like the type of equipment that is so precise that has to go into every inch of this giant, miles long, whatever shape. It's probably like a circle.
It's like 54 miles circumference. Yeah. I mean, that's also the thing. Like, I believe in you. If you're listening to this, we believe in you. I don't know if all of us on the show working together could build a super collider. So I don't, like when you see the magnificent ambition of something like this, I think it still is. I mean, it's a boondoggle, and they definitely, I'm with Gravy. It definitely sounds like they screwed some people on eminent domain, but this is how science works. You have to build in the fact that some of these things just aren't going to get to completion.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was a big deal. It was going to go into a town called, I'm going to see if I can say this right, Waxahachie. This is a town in Texas. It's spelled Waxachie, which is, it's fun to spell.
There's a very talented singer, songwriter, artist that goes by that name, Waxahachie, who's, I believe, from Texas. They pronounce it Waxahachie, is how I've heard it said. But it's
because it's like vinyl and they're musicians.
No, it is Waxahachie, W-A-A-K. That's the pronunciation I've got.
Oh, they pronounce it W-A-X. Oh, so I'm sorry, you're doing the pronunciation guide. Got it.
Yeah, well, I don't know, guys. But the whole reason we're talking about it is because Gravy called in and has a family member whose property was, I guess, purchased by the government there for the purposes of this giant construction project. And what happens to that land? The thing that we were talking about, and I wanted to ask you guys about, I think that because there was some drilling that was going on, there was work being done on this project for quite a while before it was canned. There were a projected 8,000 jobs that were going to be created for this project. It was a huge deal for that small town. And all this land that was being purchased, it was actually a huge deal for a lot of landowners, because they're getting quite a bit of money for land, like large swaths of land that they owned, not in the middle of nowhere, but far out enough to where, you're probably not imagining a big city's going to come through and buy your land. It was a huge deal. What happens to the land afterwards? Can you sell it back to those landowners now that you've drilled giant holes into it? And in some cases, built huge tunnels that are made of metal and cylindrical? Because those things, at least according to the official story, they filled all of those tunnels up with water, and they capped all the shafts, the entrances, to get down into them. So basically, they're just sitting there dead. Could you sell that back to somebody? Is it like selling land that has a missile silo on it?
It's a value add, I could say. You know what I mean? Because also, it's a bunker, right? That's
what I'm saying.
Retrofit that. And I guess, to answer the question honestly, it would depend on what the ideal use of the land would be at that point, right? Like, Are you still able to use it the way that you would want to use it? What is a fair price to sell it back? How do you handle things that the private market would handle, like adjusting for inflation, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know exactly how this would work, but if it was taken through eminent domain for this specific project, and that project is definitely not happening anymore, right, Matt?
No. I mean, again, All of the tunnels are flooded with water. Shafts are capped. There is a building or several buildings on the property on this huge swath of land that has, according to WFAA, I think it's an ABC News affiliate. They said that there's a chemical manufacturer that functions on the property somewhere. But my question is, guys, this is what Gravy and I were talking about. What if you did this entire thing as cover to acquire all of that land and start building something underneath it, but it's not a particle accelerator. It's not a super collider. It's something else. And it's still there.
Does Gravy have a guess?
The theory is like kind of bunker style stuff, secret weapons that could be under there, the way some land was purchased covertly to put, missiles underneath them in silos.
Or Disney World.
Yeah. Or Disney World.
Just say it.
But in this case, the land is all still there. Some previous landowners want it back. So it is a little weird. It feels like the government could use the money, even if it's, $150,000 here, $1.5 million there, could probably use it. Why not sell that stuff back unless there's, something wrong with the soil?
Right.
The soil is sour.
I think the troubling thing about that, Gravy, is that it is plausible. I wouldn't even dismiss it down to the level of possible. It is plausible because precedent for that sort of thing does exist. You know what I mean? We know that there are often controversies surrounding any work of this magnitude, like the Hoover Dam, the Three Gorges Dam, a third thing that is not a dam. I'm just doing rule of threes. The idea of using it as a cover story doesn't necessarily mean that the people building the thing always meant that to be the case, right? It could be, was the investment group that purchased this. Maybe they just said, hey, this is kind of infrastructure for the thing we need, right?
Right. What was that Project Iceworm we talked about? There was like a secret construction project under the ice. Oh, man.
Yeah. Project Iceworm.
That's like some True Detective season 4 type stuff, right?
We did an
season
episode.
3 rather. Yeah.
We did that because they wanted to build
season 4
missile launch sites under Greenland or under an ice sheet around Greenland. And they thought, look, if we do this and we don't tell anybody what we're doing out here in the middle of nowhere, no offense, Greenland, then we will have a secret sucker punch in the great nuclear arms race.
Dude.
It's the equivalent of like in Goonies, where the smart kid has the invention, like the boxing glove that comes out. It's on a spring.
Classic.
Yeah, that's definitely not a dated reference I just did. But the Iceworm was building something like that. And we know that there are a lot of active sites in the United States. Security is tight by necessity. So it's possible. I mean, I don't know. Matt, what's our over and under on getting boots in the ground? Love to join you, Gravy, and let's see how far past the fence we can get.
How deep can we go? How deep can we get them boots into the ground?
I need LiDAR stat. LiDAR on this.
Let's do it. I don't know, but I'd love to take a trip out there and check out the land, but it is still government property. So, there's an 8-foot fence, as to Gravy's point. Got to be careful. I'm down. I want to learn more. It feels cool to me. It feels like such a missed opportunity. There's some quotes. I actually, let me give people this article so you can find it. You can search for the Superconducting Super Collider, how Texas got the world's most ambitious scientific project and why it failed. This thing really was a big deal. It was before CERN. It was going to be active for 10 years prior to the Large Hadron Collider coming on. There's quotes in there about all of that. Like, man, we really missed out. This was so amazing and we failed. But it's because in order to make something like this, you got to get the will of the people, or enough of the people that have enough of the money to say, okay.
And at every step of the way, you have to defend the project against an army of lawmakers who want to get reelected based on being tough on spending.
Yup.
And the first thing that'll go is going to be a social program or a scientific endeavor.
You know what? We could have done it, but George H.W. Bush, you know what he famously said, guys?
What'd you say?
No new taxes.
Read my lips. Right. See, but what I think a lot of people give him a hard time because really,
because he's former CIA.
You gotta. There's no such thing as former. What we've got to say is like maybe we need to read the printed transcript because his original speech was probably no. Period. New taxes.
Read my lips. New taxes. New taxes.
Right, exactly. There's a plot twist. We don't give him the credit as a writer he deserves. But
oh man,
yeah. Where does this leave us?
It doesn't leave us anywhere besides thank you, Gravy, for calling in when you did with this story. Thank you also, and I'm going to tell this to you guys off air, or maybe we can all just call Gravy back together. He promises he's going to call back numerous times. He told a little Myrtle Beach, South Carolina UFO story from like 1988.
Hell yeah.
I want to tell you guys about it, but how about this, Gravy? Call back in, tell us that story. Then we can all talk about it. That'll be the best way to do it. All right, well, that's it for now. Thank you, Gravy. Thank you, Biscuits. We'll be right back with more messages from you.
And we have returned. One thing, a mental note, just while I have it in my head for another show we do, Ridiculous History, top failed U.S., massive U.S. projects. You know what I mean? What didn't become the Hoover Dam? That's going to be a great episode. All right, we've got that. Sorry, folks, you're seeing the homework live. Let's start with a little bit of background. We had a fantastic response from people with firsthand experience with a group called colloquially 2x2, sometimes referring to themselves as the friends within the organization. And with this, out of all the correspondence we got so much, but really appreciated this one from a conspiracy realist we will call C. C, you said the following. Hello, I've been a Stuff They Don't Want You to Know listener for years now. I've always enjoyed your show. I usually skip the listener mail program, so I missed the one referring to the 2x2s as a cult until today. I wanted to reach out right away because I grew up following that religion. My sister was a worker or missionary for decades. My parents had Sunday meetings, church in their living room every week, and many other people I deeply respect are still part of that faith. Personally, says C, I stopped attending meetings about 13 years ago when I was deeply depressed and felt that not following any religion was the best choice for my mental health. I still feel that way for myself, but I know many people whose mental health is helped by their faith, and I also think that is valid. And I really appreciate that point, C, on the same page there. C continues, all that is to say that I did not leave the group on bad terms. I didn't leave it because I think the doctrine is wrong. But I did leave it and have not sought out any other faith since. And this is where we get some really even-handed information from C, who continues, this group is not a cult. There is no central leader, and the people who are in positions of authority aren't considered deities or anything like that, just a bit better at listening to and obeying God than the average believer, maybe. The convention gatherings are not what you would expect. If you're picturing an evangelical megachurch service or something similar, they're very quiet. The entire congregation sings hymns together. Anyone who feels moved has the opportunity to make a short audible prayer. Several of the workers or ministers share a message from the Bible. Members of the congregation also have the opportunity to share brief messages from their own Bible reading or just something that touched them. We'll get back to this line that has already been shared at the convention. And here we get a really humanizing thing here. I will defend the beliefs and way of life of these people, or what these people have, with all my heart. But of course, the Vice articles are about CSA, which is child sexual abuse, which is indefensible. Unfortunately, because there is no central leader, no formal training of any kind for the workers, the ministers, each instance where abuse took place was handled, or not handled, more likely, by a person who had no business handling it. I can't defend not reporting alleged CSA to authorities, but I can say that was definitely not a policy. I was vaguely aware of one instance where a male worker was accused of inappropriate behavior with minors, and while I don't remember the circumstances of something that happened half my life ago, I do remember that he killed himself rather than face the consequences. More than anything else, I want to impress upon you that abuse of any kind is not taught or generally accepted in this faith. The fact that men in positions of authority use that power and authority to rape is horrifying, but it's by no means unique to this group. The fact that reports of abuse were mishandled or ignored is awful, but I believe it is a product of people with no training, relying on decades-old traditions rather than a product of malicious intent. I can't say the Friends are universally good people, but that's just it, says C. The group is made up of people. Some are good, some are mediocre, and a few have turned out to be truly awful, just like people all over the world, in or out of any religion or way of life. And we'll stop it there. But I think those are pretty solid points. What do you guys think?
No doubt. Yeah.
Well, it's super solid, and it's great to hear from somebody who has real experience inside and understands how it works and understands the way it feels to be a member of the group, which is, I think, something that anybody who hasn't actually experienced that, been in the worship sessions of whatever religion, whatever belief system it is, been in the moments where there's prayer, the moments where a pastor or a leader of a group is actually speaking to you, and what those words sound like coming out of them rather than just being written down, because it really can change things. I think about the way transcripts look of podcasts, right? When we've gone over those, it's very different when it's being, hesitate to say performed, but when it's being emitted by a human voice rather than just words that anybody could read in their own voice and give it their own thing.
Intonation, cadence, right? And frequency implication. Most human communication is not the words people are actually saying to you, especially in an in-person situation. And I would say that there are people of tremendous faith who are also just super awesome people. You know what I mean? Like, I love hanging out with monks from pretty much any religion. They're super chill. Right. And we also see this point about a group being made of people. It's something that we have talked about at length on this show. And it's something that, I think it's something a lot of people struggle with, is the idea that we should not dismiss other people's beliefs, especially if they're not forcing anything on you. It's easy for us to poo-poo things. A lot of us used to be those hot-headed internet atheists on Reddit, but if it's working for them, and further, indeed, if it's helping them make the world a better place, then I say, go team. I've got your back. Yeah.
All 100%. Say it all. Literally say it out loud often when having conversations about religion. There's even a part of me that is a little envious of the good ones, the folks that have faith and have religion and use it as a positive force in their lives. There's some part of me that wishes that I had that in my life. I'm not going to lie.
Now, to be clear, this is a very even-handed thing, as you were saying, Matt, from somebody who's in the organization or was in the organization and seemed to have, by and large, a good, or at least not terrible and traumatizing experience. This is not the only piece of correspondence. We had a lot of other people write in who have views or opinions or experiences that may differ. And I think that difference, that discrepancy, just goes to further prove C's point. Like, not all nodes of these communities, right, were monolithic, right? They weren't all doing the same thing, and the point about organizations is also really powerful, because bad faith actors can be in pretty much any organization outside of maybe municipal governments in Singapore, because those guys are pretty squeaky clean. It's a weird way to walk, but they are very up to snuff.
Yeah, dude. I've been rewatching The Righteous Gemstones again. I think I keep mentioning this.
It's very good.
I keep watching. Oh gosh, can I tell you my favorite? I've got issues. Things get stuck in my head. I have watched a troubling amount of times in a row the song "Misbehavin'," and we all know "Misbehavin'."
Misbehavin'.
Yeah, with the cloud shoes.
Misbehavin'.
Okay, so the weirdest line in there. This is what captures me. The weirdest line, because it's an example of like good old timey Cracker Barrel type kid hijinks. Misbehaving, but there's a dark side to it. and they come from Baby Billy's parts. In one part, he's just saying, run around the house with a pickle in my mouth. Misbehaving. What is that?
I don't know.
He's just being goofy, man. I really like, what is it? Oh, Lord, there's a payday. Hallelujah, there's a payday.
That's when Baby Billy's singing at the resort in season 3.
Yes.
And I just watched that episode, and I cannot stop that thing from playing in my head.
Yeah, it's
he's wearing the giant like shell or whatever. It's fabulous.
The misbehaving line, though, the sinister part that I'm mentioning, go back and listen to this. He begs his daddy not to disappear.
Oh, but
that's so very Baby Billy.
Yeah,
and it's
dude.
just like one line in there.
Oh.
There are levels to that song. But yeah, I'm sorry, I derailed us. Why did you mention this?
Always worth a Righteous Gemstones derailment.
Oh, I derailed because I wanted to mention, I wanted to shout out again, Tony, I think it's Cavallero.
Yeah.
He plays Keith.
Incredible.
I watched the scene again where he slaps one of the muscle men's pecs, and it is just one of the funniest, like, small comedic physical things I've seen in a long time.
He's a big fan of Disgraceland. It's a podcast we used to have on the network, and I worked with those guys, and through them, I actually had a Zoom call with him one time, and it was funny because it was before I was a super fan of the show, so I didn't really think that much of it. It was just like I was like hearing a podcast pitch or something. But now that I'm a huge fan, I'm like thinking back on that. I'm like, dang, I wish it would have happened just a little bit later.
We're going to keep this one relatively short. Again, we have missions to embark upon. However, before we do, we'd like to give you one letter from home. Again, our sort of conspiratorial prairie home companion without the Garrison Keillor creepiness, hopefully, because he got in trouble. I don't know if you guys heard about that.
Yeah, bad
Sad
touch.
stories. Yeah. So this comes to us from Son of a Mitch.
Son of a name.
Mitch says, again, letters from home. It's just our, how you doing? How are you folks? Tell us about your part of the world. Son of a Mitch says, hey guys, I wanted to reach out and say thanks for crafting such a great show. You three are part of my daily commute, and it's a huge benefit to be able to spend that time learning while also being entertained. A difficult balancing act. Thank you, sir. Like Mark Twain said, you can live for a long time off one compliment. I listened to your strange news program covering the North Korean balloons filled with feces and trash, and my first thought was, those darn 99 Luft balloons.
Jeez.
Going back to the note about transcript versus speech.
99
So Son of a Mitch says, I know a joke of this variety is tricky to deliver through a medium that's primarily audio, but it seemed to be something Ben could pull off. Hope we did you proud, Son of a Mitch. Thank you so much for writing to us. # no pun left behind. Not even humorous Harry. Has he emailed us recently?
God, I hope not. I'm just kidding, humorous Harry. We love you.
And the very last thing, you may have seen this somewhere on social media, but we just figured out, or I just figured out, you can get Illumination Global Unlimited hats. I thought they were just T-shirts. So it turns out that we still have swag, you guys.
Wow.
We got swag for days, bruh. Swagger. That's what you call it. No, swag is different. Yeah, merch. That's right. You totally can. Ben's rocking the hat right now. Illumination Global Unlimited. Looks great on you.
Yeah, we are proudly sponsored by Illumination Global Unlimited, and thank you for saying so, Noel. I am required to state, quote, Illumination Global Unlimited has in no way threatened our families, friends, or current nation states. End quote. I think we got it there. We're going to call it an evening. Venture out into the darkness, and if you would like to walk off the edges of the map, you can join us there too. Thanks to C, thanks to Son of a Mitch, Gravy, Nico, and everybody else who took the time to join us on our continuing mission. I'm not going to do the full Star Trek reference, but we want to be easy to find online.
Correct. We do want that, and we hope that we achieve that with our handle Conspiracy Stuff, which is the way you can locate us on your internet platform of choice, including Facebook, where we have our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy. XFKA Twitter, as well as YouTube, with fresh video content rolling your way every single week. On Instagram and TikTok, you can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff Show.
These are the voyages of the starship stuff they don't want you to know. You can access it. You can access it by dialing 1-833-STDWYTK. Put it in your phone as a contact so you know if the void calls you back, because it might. When you call in, give yourself a cool nickname, then you've got 3 minutes, say whatever you'd like. Do include in that message whether or not we have permission to use your voice and message on the air. If you got more to say, they can fit in that 3-minute voicemail. Why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
the entities that read every single message we receive. Be well aware, sometimes the void writes back. I know I've been saying that a lot lately because it is true. 24 hours in the evening, 7 nights a week. All you got to do is reach out and touch faith. Can't wait to hear from you. Conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.